based. And it's just a different life. I call it life. Like the south of France for me is living. Zurich is more administrative for me. Doesn't sound like a destination where I'm gonna stay for the rest of my life. Probably not, but I I think that, you have different preferences based on your needs. And my needs are just, having humans around me, being chatty in a nice way, letting the dogs sniff and play with each other, having a quick chat, supporting each other, finding the right. Because for some time, and this was like me during and after my burnout healing, I just hated people. I just hated everyone. But I also realized it was my environment and not because I'm hating people. I don't hate people, but sometimes I have these like coexisting emotions about hating humans and then just loving them. So, but I gotta stick with loving people, loving to have chats, loving to meet them. I have ADHD and autism, whoever's new here. I was assessed around 6 years ago and I started digging deep. I love going down the rabbit holes. I started looking into the science of neurodivergence, the history, the past, what kind of systems we created, etc. And environment is exactly the topic I want to talk about today. And there's one thing. When we have mental issues, struggles, trauma, CPTSD, whatever we have, if we have that, we carry it with us. So changing country, changing location doesn't really make a difference in terms of what's going on inside of us. But once we have a bit of distance from the environment that we have right now, which could be a workplace, some friendships, the partner, once we have distance from that, we have the ability to see more clearly and to actually be able to find more about ourselves. And this is like a journey over the past years I've been going through, where I was really trying to figure out who am I beneath all the masks and beneath all the expectations from the outside. This was so hard for me. And I left my job. I left a lot of friendships. I was alone for a long, long, long time. I was crying my eyeballs out every single day in Zurich. And I also said goodbye to a relationship with someone slightly psychopathic, but this is also another topic I'm gonna talk about the next time, which is a very common dynamic between neurodivergents and psychopaths. Very similar traits, very different intentions. But yeah, I want to talk about the environment, and I don't want to be too scientific, but the thing is that we are still talking about neurodivergence being malfunctioning or executive functioning is a problem. But I would like to shift that narrative a little bit because we are a different species of mind, And we have evolutionary science, neuroscience, and they show that people with ADHD, they offer significant survival advantages. So we're still talking about the hunter-gatherer context, right? Where neurodivergents have been outperforming absolutely everyone. But that doesn't really work anymore because of the systems that we have. And the systems are rather rigid, meaning most environments don't let neurodivergents be as they are. So you get scrutinized, you get punished, you get bullied, etc., by the masses, in vertical commas, in subtle ways and in very obvious ways. And this is where we have to look at today. So ADHDers do naturally outperform neurotypical people if being in an environment where they actually can use their strengths. So, for example, task switching. Task switching is something that neurodivergents are very, very good at because you adapt to shifting priorities, to different needs. You adapt to absolutely everything in your environment, which is like an old survival mechanism. And that's not a bad thing. We call it executive function problems in the medical landscape because you don't function like that for 8 hours straight. And I can tell you, you don't have to. You don't have to. And I'm not saying that this is easy. It's not, because I personally, I have been working in people and culture for almost 2 decades in mostly corporate environments, matrix organizations. And I can tell you, oh my God, like may this never find me again. Probably I have to, because my company is not running yet. But my long-term goal is to create this entire new economy where we really have like a support system that works for neurodivergence, but tying and connecting that towards the systems that we already have. For example, health insurances being able to pay mentoring and coaching. Some of them do already, but I want them to take this over because we have a problem. We don't have enough resources to cover all the mental health issues, the burnouts, etc., for everyone on this planet. It's not a neurodivergent problem. It's an everywhere problem. And there seems to be no solutions. So that's why I created all of that. However, that was a side quest. Going back to the environment topic, you need environments where you're able to thrive. You need flexibility. You probably need a lot of freedom. You still need structure. You like structure, but at the same time, you have quite an entrepreneurial mindset. So for some neurodivergents, going into entrepreneurship is the only way to escape all of the rigidity. That's one. And most of neurodivergents are forced actually to go into entrepreneurship because when you are being fired like I did for so many times, not because you're a bad employee, not because you've done something wrong, you are a high performer, super ethical, you have integrity, etc. And this is in toxic work environments where I worked mainly not a good thing. They want you to mask, to say yes and amen. They want you to just like execute on what's coming from the top. You should never question anything because they see it as a threat that you're questioning authority, even though you're just asking questions because you want to make sense of things. So there's a huge like miscommunication problem. And until we have fixed that, I think for a lot of you guys, there might only be the option of entrepreneurship. And it is fucking nuts. I'm not gonna lie. It really sucks the soul out of me sometimes because I really work a lot, but at the moment I am the accountant, I am the marketing, I'm the CEO, I am tech, I am the finance bro. Like I am everything in one person, which is hopefully not leading to the next burnout. But what I want to say with this is that the reward will be that you have the flexibility and the freedom one day. Okay. I'm not saying that everyone should be doing entrepreneurship. I truly believe that not everyone can be an entrepreneur or should be an entrepreneur. But at the same time, we collectively have to change the systems to make workplaces adapt to different neurotypes, which is not the case yet. So I had a very long history of like fucked up workplaces, really bad dynamics, things that I didn't understood, things where I have been gaslit into thinking being wrong. Okay. But today I just understand the whole dynamic. And I'm not saying that I never did make mistakes. I'm not saying that I was always perfect. I never did something wrong. I'm not saying that, but I was really working in a lot of workplaces that are so harmful, not only to neurodivergence, but also to everybody else. And this is not how systemic change works. So I am boycotting any company that is toxic. Also from a client perspective, I would never work with a client where I don't have a good feeling with. I would never work or get a mind mentor on board on our platform if I don't feel comfortable with them. I rejected two because, yeah, it was just a no, too many red flags. And if I see that popping up, I'm just like, no, that doesn't work. So that's me. But it took me years to to hold my ground and to stand firm. So it's like it's a journey. It's a journey, and everyone has their own journey. But your environment really matters. Like, who are the family members that you have around yourself? Who are your friends? Who is your partner? What is your workplace representing? And I can tell you that this makes a difference. Like, the biggest difference in your life is the environment that lets you be as you are. And most of you guys probably don't have that, because when you do struggle, it means that potentially you're not being in the right environment. Okay, so what I also wanted to share is that we should not be talking about the executive dysfunction, but more about the adaptive preference for exploration, which means that you are capable of adapting fast, which most people don't understand as a concept. So we have a lot of education to do as well. And I'm trying my best to, when I have keynote speeches, to be as inclusive as possible. So neurotypicals or neuronormative people also have the ability to fully understand the complexity of neuroscience and the different neurotypes that we have, which is not that easy, because when you have, for example, pattern recognition yourself, you see the things very clearly. You connect unrelated dots in a very simple way, and it just creates a big picture for you, which is very easy. But linear thinkers, they need more step-by-step guidance in order to really understand the full complexity. And I think the most important part is that they have to be willing to learn, because some of them don't. And I stopped trying to convince people that don't want to learn. So I think it also comes with setting strong boundaries and being very firm on where you invest your time and your energy and where it doesn't make sense. I've had friends, like quite a big circle of friends, and today I understand it's all about distraction. They are distracting themselves on a constant basis. They go to their jobs they don't really like, and then they escape for weekend trips. They escape on vacation for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, forgetting their lives. I wanted to say miserable lives, but partially. And then just getting back to do whatever they have to do in order to earn a wage and living from paycheck to paycheck. Some of them save a little bit of money, but some of them don't really have long-term thinking because they are distracting themselves. And distraction, again, talking about environments, distraction is something that keeps you stuck. When you're constantly watching Netflix, when you're constantly watching the news, when you're constantly traveling, when you're constantly going out with friends, constantly, how will you have time to sit with your ass on the sofa and ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want and what do I actually need? And who am I? What I said earlier, like, who am I? What is it that I want and what is it that I need? I think those are like three key questions, especially when you are later assessed in your life as a neurodivergent. You have to find out these things. It's like, I call it the aftermath. You have to start from scratch. You have to start a new life. This is your new life, because it's like everything is falling apart. The mask that you've been putting on is crackling down, and you're just like falling apart at some point and be like, fuck, man, this is why X, Y, and Z happened. This was the dynamic. This is what has happened. You see things suddenly from a complete different perspective once you start realizing that you are neurodivergent, and everything is just falling apart. So everything is like rock bottom, and you have to start like kind of life from zero. And the younger you find out, the easier it will be to navigate. And for me, I was a little older. I was not like 20 when I found out. I was like in the beginning of my 30s, and I already had a career. I already had my own flat, bills to pay. I had a dog. Like there were so many things and responsibilities that I already had. Luckily, no children. This would have been like even harder for me personally. And whoever's listening, having children, sorry for saying that. I know it is fucking exhausting. And I'm just like sending you so much strength and courage, because when you are a neurodivergent parent, this is like, wow. This is wow. And my best friend, she has two kids, two ADHD boys. She has ADHD as well. Anything but easy. But again, when you start understanding yourself, when you start understanding your needs and creating the environment that is good for you, it is so much easier to cope with everything, with the stress, constant noise, constant buzz of things, you know. So I think